Usually when we think about building a successful life,
Yeah.
there's this expectation of structural integrity.
Right.
Like you are the lead architect of your own existence. You build your career, your relationships, your political beliefs, and it all acts like this, this massive, impenetrable skyscraper. It keeps you safe from the elements.
Yeah, it's totally fortified. I mean, we like our boundaries to be highly visible, categorized, and above all, protected from whatever chaos is happening down on the street level.
Right. You've got the perfect security system,
Yeah.
the reinforced steel, the bulletproof glass. But then maybe midlife, or honestly, maybe just on a random Tuesday, you realize that the windows don't actually open.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the climate control is completely broken. And the person living inside this flawless, untouched fortress is like starved of oxygen. Suddenly that skyscraper isn't a sanctuary at all. It's a cage.
It becomes the absolute definition of a self-imposed prison.
Yeah.
I mean, you survived the storm, sure, but you're suffocating on your own recycled air.
Exactly. And that tension between the cages we build to survive and the oxygen we actually need to live is the beating heart of what we are unpacking today. So welcome to the Deep Dive. We are taking a really unique journey today into Terribly Alive, which is the 11th album by the artist known as Message Maestro.
It's a fascinating piece of work.
It really is. And just as a reminder for you listening, you can find the music on streaming platforms. But today, we're doing something, well, a bit different. We are stripping away the melody entirely to examine the raw poetry of these 16 tracks.
And when you look at the lyrics laid out bare like this, a really profound narrative arc emerges. We actually received a specific directive from the source material for this mission.
Right, the curation notes.
Yeah, to act as the liaison for you, the listener, and curate these 16 tracks into a cohesive story. And the overarching theme we've synthesized here is that this album is a journey. It starts in that rigid, numbed-out modern existence, our digital and political cages.
Right.
Then it actively drags the listener down into the messy, shadow-filled reality of the human body before finally releasing us into a state of, radical, yielding awareness.
And the perfect place to start is right where this modern melody begins, with the first song, Active Gaze.
Such a powerful track.
Right. We find the narrator, as the lyrics say, stuck in the glow of the static rectangle. It's his incredibly visceral description of the physical toll of the digital age.
It really is. The lyrics talk about ciliary muscles locked in a spasm and feeling like a satellite in rust. Think about the posture of modern life. We're all just hunched over, eyes fixed on a screen.
Yeah.
We are, as the song says, chewing the data but tasting the dust. It's just a complete disconnection from physical reality.
But the solution offered in the chorus isn't just a generic, go touch grass or put your phone down. It's deeply somatic. The lyrics go, I drop my awareness 3 fingers below, down to the Dantian, where the heavy winds blow.
Right. And this is where the mechanism of the album's philosophy really starts to reveal itself. So the Dantian is a concept from martial arts and Taoist meditation.
Okay.
Geographically, it's about 2 or 3 inches below your navel. That's your physical center of gravity. But physiologically, dropping your awareness there does something very, very specific.
Like what?
Well, when we stare at screens, breathing really shallowly into our upper chests, we are locked in the sympathetic nervous system. That's our fight or flight mode. It's hyper-aroused, it's panicked, and it's just exhausting.
So by dropping your awareness to the gut, you're literally forcing like a biological override.
Precisely. You are shifting into the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. You are pulling the energy out of that panicked intellectual cage in your head and grounding it in the dense, heavy reality of the physical body.
Which is so necessary because that panicked intellectual cage doesn't just stop at screen time, right?
Yeah.
It bleeds into how we view the entire world, which the album tackles in Still on the Outside Looking In.
Yes, exactly.
Here, the cage is the political mind. The narrator talks about building a fortress out of shoulds and wearing opinions like a suit made of stone. But the line that absolutely floored me is when the artist frames this rigid intellectual scaffolding as child trauma grown tall.
That is such a devastatingly accurate psychological insight. I mean, when we experience instability early in life, the coping mechanism is very often hyper-intellectualization.
Right, like if I can just understand...
Exactly. If I have an impenetrable, concrete opinion on every single social and political issue, then nothing can surprise me, nothing can hurt me. The armor looks like high-level intellect, but underneath, it's just a terrified kid trying to control a chaotic environment.
And when you zoom out, you see millions of people walking around in these stone suits of armor, which naturally creates the landscape of the track, Humble and Humble.
Mm-hmm.
This song paints a really vivid, almost mythological picture of a deeply polarized nation. The lyrics describe a merchant king with a golden crest and a fire in his face who rises from the houses of commerce.
Yeah, and we see this figure dividing the people, falling, and then rising again. And what's crucial to note here, especially for you listening, is that the song acts as an impartial mirror for a fractured society.
Right, we're not taking any political sides here, and neither is the album.
Exactly. It's impartially observing the fallout of all this collective rigidity. The lyrics contrast the crumbling towers of sin with the quiet, enduring resilience of the humble and humble out in the heartland. It says the fire in his face is a mirror for all. We see what we wanted when we watched him fall.
But wait, hold on. Let me push back on this a little. I get the metaphor, and I see how the armor isolates us. But in a fractured, chaotic world, especially the politically fractured one described in Humble and Humble, isn't building that rigid intellectual scaffolding just a natural survival mechanism?
Well,
I mean, how can we survive without the armor if everything around us is crumbling?
that is the exact delusion the album wants to dismantle. The armor feels practical, yes, but what happens when you try to wear a suit of stone into your living room? Or into your marriage? Right. Your attempts to control the external chaos inevitably backfire because you can't just turn the fortress off. It bleeds into your personal life.
Which brings us perfectly to the next section of our journey and the track celebration, featuring the character of the neurotic planner.
Yes. The narrator here makes a rigid 5-year plan, trying to control every single variable of their existence. And by doing that, they effectively cast their lovers and friends as unconsenting actors in a script they never even auditioned for.
I think we all know someone like that, or honestly, we've been that person. You try to choreograph every interaction so you never have to feel vulnerable.
And the cosmic joke of Celebration is that the universe refuses to read the dialogue you wrote for it.
Yeah.
The narrator is frantically searching for the grand decree, like the ultimate answer to why things are going wrong, and the lyrics actually reference that famous sci-fi joke from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
The answer to the universe is simply 42.
Meaning, there is no grand equation to solve. There is no final crisis to manage. We're just actors who got so obsessed with the lighting and the stage directions that we forgot we were supposed to be participating in a play.
Wow. And when that illusion of control collapses, it doesn't just ruin our 5-year plans, it infects our closest relationships. We start keeping score. And the album explores this perfectly in the track Grace, through this idea of an emotional ledger.
Yeah, the emotional ledger is such a brilliant concept.
It hit me so hard. It's like cooking the books at an emotional corporation. When we hurt someone, instead of admitting fault and paying the debt, we hide the loss. The song says, don't audit the ledger, just blame me or the weather.
Right, we weaponize our own shame to avoid being vulnerable. And what happens when you cook the books? The IRS of your subconscious eventually comes to collect.
Someone always has to pay the tax.
Always. The unpaid debts manifest as pervasive anxiety. You can't sleep, not because the world is inherently dangerous, but because your internal accounting is fraudulent.
So what does true grace look like in this context then?
Well, true grace isn't pristine. Breakfast at Tiffany's perfection. The song describes grace as a weathered elm floor. It has been beaten by rain, the deep saw marks are visible, and it's scuffed by heavy boots.
Wow.
Yeah, a gracious person doesn't hide their scars or pretend their ledger is perfectly balanced. They are gritty, honest, and completely transparent about their debts.
But then there are moments where the ledger doesn't even matter anymore, because the entire corporation just burns to the ground.
Yeah.
The total collapse of control hits its absolute peak in the track.
Yeah.
How can I stitch it? This is about sudden, shocking loss. The lyrics just say, a wife, gone.
It's devastating.
It really is. And you see the narrator desperately trying to suture the seconds and stitch time and space back together to find solid ground that simply doesn't exist anymore.
Because when you face a loss that monumental, the 5-year plan doesn't just fail, it becomes absurd. The stone suit of armor basically becomes a tomb.
So let me ask you this. When the celebration lyrics talk about dropping the puppet strings, is the artist suggesting we just give up on planning our lives entirely?
No, it's not about giving up. It's about recognizing where true power actually lies. Since we can't control the world and our ledgers are always going to be full of debts, the only way forward is to surrender to the very things we fear most.
The darkness, the anxiety, our raw desires.
Exactly. We have to descend into the shadow.
Which brings us to tracks like Holy Darkness and The Other Side of the Door, which lean heavily into this counterintuitive advice to just stop fighting the gloom. The lyrics say they built a sanctuary out of our despair, an iron cage to keep the wilderness at bay. We lock the door against the messy darkness because we think it's going to kill us.
But the other side of the door frames anxiety not as an invading army, but as a gift wrapped up in pain.
Okay, why is anxiety a gift? I mean, to be honest, that sounds like something you'd read on a really annoying bumper sticker.
I know it does, but think about the mechanism of anxiety. Anxiety is often just the alarm bell ringing because you are fighting reality. The pain doesn't come from the darkness itself.
Where does it come from then?
It comes from the immense, exhausting friction of holding the door shut against it. The moment you invite the wilderness inside, you realize it's just weather. It passes.
And the ultimate metaphor for this terrifying surrender is in the track, The Infinite Heart. You are on a plane, cruising at 30,000 feet, and suddenly the bottom falls out. The cabin drops.
And what is your immediate biological instinct?
I mean, you grip the armrests, you white-knuckle the safety bar, you tense every single muscle in your body as if your individual physical tension is going to somehow keep a 400-ton piece of metal in the sky.
Exactly. It's the ultimate illusion of control. But in the song, the paramedic ghost whispers to the narrator to go limp in the wreckage. It says, "You're not the panic, you're the infinite heart."
That is intense.
It's a profound psychological instruction. When life goes into a free fall, gripping the armrest only ensures that your bones break upon impact. Going limp is what actually allows you to survive.
And what I love about this album is that it takes that grand life-or-death cosmic surrender and places it in the most brilliantly mundane setting imaginable.
Oh, rapture.
Yes, rapture. We're at a self-checkout scanner in a grocery store at 4 a.m. The robotic voice says, "Unexpected item in the bagging area." But the narrator looks down, and there is no item. It's just their own trembling, empty hand.
I love that imagery so much. The grocery store self-checkout as the ultimate modern confessional booth.
It's just brilliant. We are terrified of our own emptiness. But listen, I need to question this whole concept for a second.
Sure.
Going limp in a falling plane, inviting your anxiety inside to have a cup of tea. This goes against millions of years of evolutionary biology, right?
Yeah.
Is this holy darkness just a highly romanticized version of giving up?
I see why it sounds that way, but it's actually the exact opposite. It's an active, fierce participation in reality. But to truly embrace this raw existence, you have to stop living in the abstract architecture of your mind.
It's a skyscraper.
Right. The album forces you to confront the deeply physical, unapologetic reality of the human body. Which brings us to another one of our mandated strong songs.
Okay, if you are listening to this right now, maybe you're driving to work or washing the dishes, stick with us because things are about to get really, really weird.
There they are.
The track, The Golden Circuit, took me completely by surprise. It opens with the line, 6.4 trillion liters of piss, fleshed out at the stars.
Yep.
The track explicitly discusses Shivamu Kalpavidi. Now, for those who don't know, this is an ancient Vedic practice of, well, urine therapy, consuming one's own waste. So I have to push back hard here. Is Message Maestro literally advocating for this medical practice? Or is this just the ultimate punk rock metaphor for saying, I already have everything I need to heal myself inside me?
You know, whether the artist intends it literally or metaphorically is almost beside the point because the underlying philosophical metaphor here is what's truly fascinating.
Okay.
The track functions as a brilliant exploration of waste to wealth.
Okay, let's unpack this. Explain that waste to wealth concept. How does that work in the context of everything we've talked about?
Well, think about the skyscraper from the beginning. It requires external power, external water, external validation to function. The Golden Circuit describes the human body as a closed-loop system, a decentralized, self-reliant battery.
Okay, I follow.
The idea is that the body can transmute its own sorrow, its own byproducts, and its own refuse into medicinal wine, completely bypassing what the lyrics call the merchants of medicine.
Who want to sell you your own breath?
Precisely. In our modern cages, we are constantly told that we are deficient, that we need external fixes, pills, products, political ideologies to make us whole.
Right.
This track is the ultimate, shocking rejection of that external scaffolding. It demands absolute internal sovereignty. It forces you to look at the parts of yourself you consider waste or shameful and recognize them as a source of power.
It's incredibly intense. I was audibly taken aback. But the album does balance that visceral shock with the quiet beauty of a track like Bask in the Universe.
Yeah, that's a great contrast.
We meet a character named Susie. And Susie isn't scaling a mountain or doing intense bodily alchemy. She finds the infinite cosmos in the mundane, physical reality of a warm bathtub. She practices the terrifying art of letting go, soaking in the nebula while just laying in porcelain.
Both tracks, despite their radically different tones, point to the exact same truth. They demand that we drop the intellectual armor and find the divine within our raw physical vessels.
Yeah.
Whether that's through the intense internal alchemy of a closed-loop system or just trusting the bathwater to hold your physical weight.
Which brings us to the climax of this curation journey. We've gone from the rigid mind to the illusion of control down into the shadow and into the raw physical body. Now we bring together the final mandated strong songs to resolve this tension.
Starting with the album's title track, Terribly Alive.
Yes, a designated strong song, and it holds the core metaphor for the whole experience. The lyrics say, "The thunderbolt descends upon the brittle, rigid oak that shatters because it never bends."
The oak tree is majestic, it's impressive, but it is fundamentally unyielding. When a severe storm hits, its very strength becomes its fatal flaw.
So, the scaffolding from the beginning, the political mind, the child trauma grown tall that was the oak.
Exactly. And the narrator contrasts the oak with the willow. They practice the melancholic art of the willow, weeping in the wind and using the wreckage as a pillow. The willow survives the hurricane not by fighting the wind, but by yielding to it completely.
To survive the storm, you have to become the willow. And we see this yielding applied to human consciousness in silence and the sound.
The reconciliation of the brain's hemispheres.
Right. The left brain, which handles logic, categorization, and building those intellectual fortresses, isn't portrayed as evil, though.
No, it's not evil, it's just out of position. The left brain is meant to be an excellent servant, not the master. It dissects things into pieces so we can use them. But the right brain, the intuition, the side that sees the interconnected whole that is supposed to lead.
The lyrics suggest that the ultimate self-inquiry isn't asking how the world works, but who is asking the question.
That shift from how to who is everything. How is the left brain trying to build a better cage? Who is the right brain realizing that you are not the cage at all, you are the awareness observing it?
Wow. Not how does the world work, but who's the I? And let's just get too deeply philosophical for you listening. The album immediately grounds this high-level consciousness in a guy named Danny, in the track Forest Tending, Drum-Beating, Long-Distance Soul.
I love Danny.
Right. Danny is a 54-year-old park ranger and drummer. He's not out seeking cosmic rapture. He isn't building intellectual fortresses on the internet. He's just pedaling his bike through the rain, turning his 54 years into minor victories and keeping the backbeat true.
Danny is the willow embodied. He is living in the Dantian. He is perfectly grounded in the physical reality of the rain and the drum.
And that perfect grounding leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, the last mandated strong song, The Floor and the Roof. This song is the ultimate synthesis of everything we've unpacked today.
It really is.
It brings in the imagery of the I Ching, the ancient Chinese divination text made of 64 hexagrams.
And here is where the mechanics of the universe and the biology of the human body just beautifully align. The 64 hexagrams of the I Ching mathematically mirror the 64 codons of human DNA.
Which is mind-blowing.
Yeah, the song uses this profound biological and spiritual parallel to show that the ancient wisdom isn't out there in the stars. It's literally coded into our cellular chains.
The lyrics describe the human spine acting as an infinite antenna. I breathe out the solid, I climb up the tree, I breathe in the broken to the core beneath me.
It closes the loop entirely. The out-breath grounds us to the floor, firmly rooting us in the messy physical reality of the body. And the in-breath reaches the roof, connecting us to the vastness of the mind without getting trapped by it. It perfectly unites matter and spirit.
So if we look back at the ground we've covered on this mission, well, actually, let me just summarize the arc for you listening. We started with the person staring numbly at a screen, trapped in the skyscraper made of their own rigid defenses. We watched them try to control the unpredictable universe with 5-year plans, only to crash into the painful reality of their own emotional leisure. We descended into the shadow, embraced our raw, sometimes shocking physical nature, and finally learned what it means to stop fighting the storm and bend like the willow.
And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder. Throughout this entire album, Message Maestro constantly reminds us that our greatest breakthroughs don't come when we are succeeding at holding it all together.
No, they don't.
They come precisely at the moment of absolute failure, when the 5-year plan collapses, when the plane drops out of the sky, when the unexpected item on the scanner is just your own trembling emptiness.
It's the moment the armor cracks.
Exactly. So look closely at the parts of your life where you are gripping the safety bar the tightest right now. Where are you white-knuckling your relationships, your career, or your self-image? What would happen if, just for today, you decided to let go of the armrests and go completely limp in the wreckage?
Because maybe, once you stop bracing for the impact, you'll realize that the skyscraper you thought was keeping you safe was actually the only thing keeping you from the air you so desperately need to breathe.